Our next guest says this hack was a fully preventable failure, and he is looking at 2 cybersecurity stocks that are best positioned to handle this kind of attack. Joining us now is Andrew Nowinski, Senior Tech Analyst at D.A. Davidson. Andrew, always great to get your take on things. And specifically, the 2 companies that you think will benefit the most, you're looking at them benefiting because of the specific kind of attack that this was on the Colonial Pipeline.
Yeah, hi, Melissa. Thanks for having me on again. So the 2 stocks I'm recommending off this attack are Palo Alto and CrowdStrike. And Eamon's exactly right in his explanation of the type of attack it was. You know, this was not a nation-state attack. The malware was developed by a group called the Dark Side, executed by their partners, yet the damage and the destabilization, that this attack created was on par with the nation-state capabilities. The second thing that's really different about this attack is that the level of sophistication of this group is pretty frightening. And sadly, there does not seem to be any sort of repercussions for conducting attacks like this. So the question is, how do organizations stop attacks like this? They have to develop best-in-class platform or deploy best-in-class platforms from the likes of Palo Alto and CrowdStrike. A platform approach is the only way to detect and stop a sophisticated attack like this before the damage is done. And both Palo Alto and CrowdStrike have best-in-class platforms that could have stopped this attack and also prevented the exfiltration of data once they are inside.
Typically, Andrew, how many months after an attack, or maybe even years after an attack like this, do you actually see a CrowdStrike or Palo Alto gain business? Do you see it in their earnings results, a quarter after, 2 quarters after? Do we see that kind of relationship or no?
Well, I think you can go back to a number of the historical attacks we've seen. So most recently, the SolarWinds attack happened in December. Certainly, Palo Alto and CrowdStrike really didn't see any sort of near-term impact to their January quarter results. But I think it certainly contributes to the pipeline build for the remainder of the year for both those companies. Now, we'll see them reporting their results for their April quarter coming up shortly in a few weeks. And I think both are actually, seeing significantly better demand trends than they've seen last year at this time, in part driven by these attacks. So this most recent ransomware attack absolutely adds to the pipeline for both companies.
Andrew, I know the catalyst is never an acquisition target, but to me, look at a name like Zscaler, which I think you covered, but CrowdStrike, they have a relationship with Google. I mean, any of these companies, anywhere from $30 to $50 billion, you could get deals done. Does it make sense for one of these huge tech companies to bolt on a name like you just mentioned, a CrowdStrike?
Absolutely. So CrowdStrike is really more than just an endpoint security vendor that they're bolting on. They really have developed their own platform. I wouldn't say it's as extensive as Palo Alto. Palo Alto is by far the most comprehensive platform, but CrowdStrike has 19 modules now. I think at the time of their IPO, they had about 10. So they're really covering a vast majority of the threat vectors that a hacking group, could exploit. They can cover your endpoint, and they do. It's a very cloud-centric solution. So they can analyze trillions of threat indicators in a matter of seconds up in their threat graph database. So I think it absolutely is. I wouldn't really call it a bolt-on per se, but it augments the platform of every vendor out there. Maybe with the exception of Palo Alto. I think Palo Alto's got a fantastic portfolio built up already, covering network, endpoint, and cloud.
Andrew, great to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Nowinski. Tim Seymour, what do you make of these names? Theoretically, it seems like their pipelines now are goosed because of this, but they fall into this high multiple sort of vortex, which the markets don't like.
Yeah. This is exactly our previous conversation because, look, CrowdStrike, they have about 9% of this $10 billion endpoint market. Fantastic. In fact, a couple of analysts, I think, compare them to a younger version of Palo Alto. Great stuff, but not cheap. And so this is an environment where I think those multiples, look, if we were having this conversation a year ago, off to the races. And again, they just reported the numbers are very good, 45% revenue growth. Not a stock I'm going to chase here, even though, I'd like to say that. I mean, I've been a fan of CrowdStrike. I just don't need to be a fan right now in this marketplace, even on this headline.
Yeah, 48 price to sales. Dan, quickly, where do you stand on cyber?
Well, I think that this one, an attack on a pipeline, is pretty interesting. Think about how much worse it can get. We know the Israelis just executed an attack on a nuclear plant in Iran. I mean, there's so many other points of contact where we could have some serious disruption here. So this is the black swan. I mean, this is Mr. Robot sort of stuff, right, Guy? So I mean, to me, there's always going to be demand for these services, whether it be 25 or 30 times sales. I don't think it's a bolt-on acquisition for any of these. Maybe Palo Alto, definitely not Zscaler or CrowdStrike at these valuations, though.
All right.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.